Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paleontology Perkup, the show where we talk about everything to do with paleontology, media, and technology. I'm Sabrina, and I'll be one of your hosts today.
And I'm Rob. I also host. But Sabrina, I don't think this is the show that we're supposed to be doing right now.
Finding deposits of dinosaur fossils is always exciting, but how exactly should we go about doing this? On today's episode...
Sabrina, what are you doing? This is a retail show.
I mean, yeah, if you want to get technical about it, sure. But Rob, our guest today, discovered a deposit of dinosaur fossils. And I mean, dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs.
Tell you what, we'll talk about all the retail media stuff first, and then we'll let you ask one question about dinosaurs at the very end. Fair?
Okay.
All right, so let's try this again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Retail Refresh, the show where we talk about everything to do with retail media and technology. Today, we'll be discussing how to go about starting an in-store retail media network and a different business model for securing the hardware, software, and expertise that goes into that kind of endeavor.
And our guest today is Jeff Cripe, CEO and co-founder of Ara Labs, which operates a network of advertising displays that can be found on Uber drivers' cars, at roadside, attached to EV charging stations, and yes, inside of retail environments. He's also an investor and advisor to a number of tech companies, including in the retail space. And he also discovered a significant deposit of dinosaur fossils when he was in high school. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. So to provide a little context for our discussion, can you please tell us a little bit about Ara Labs? It would be great to get maybe an overview of your whole history and also your increasing interest in the retail space in particular.
Yeah, and let me try to condense. So we founded the company in 2016. So I'll try to condense, 7 years now into, maybe a concise minute or so. But, we originally founded the company in 2016. And the vision at the time and the thesis was that the rideshare industry was going to develop in many ways like the airline industry did, in the sense that as there was more competition in the airline industry with more carriers and lower cost transport, they started turning to value add services, better food and beverage, media connectivity, or media and connectivity, and other things to both improve your experience while you were in flight, but also to generate more revenue from their passengers. And, in 2016, rideshare wasn't the massive behemoth, that it is today. It was big and it was growing, but it was, we were in the very early stages of a transition to sort of this new form of shared transport. And we believed that, there was initially Uber and there was Lyft, but pretty soon there was Grab and Gojek and 99 Taxi and and Get and Yandex, and all of these other rideshare companies cropping up. And our belief was that rideshare too would turn to additional services in and around the vehicle to provide a better experience to their passengers and to monetize those passengers more effectively. And the opportunities that we identified at the time were actual commerce inside the vehicle, the provision of like physical goods and services inside of the vehicle, as well as potentially media and entertainment inside the vehicle, connectivity, and then advertising on top of the vehicle, borrowing from sort of a longstanding tradition of New York City and Chicago taxis having advertising on them, and thinking of sort of the next generation of what that product might look like. In 2016, we actually started on the commerce piece of it because we knew Uber and Lyft were not yet ready to lean into anything advertising related that might be construed at the time, again, going back 7 years, as feeling too taxi. So we started with this commerce product, and at the time, the company was called Cargo. And we developed a vending device that could be deployed rapidly into a rideshare vehicle that carried 30 different products, gum, chapstick, Advil, iPhone chargers, snacks. We did Korean face masks. We did condoms. We did any number of things. And we worked with probably 250 different CPG partners, the vast majority of whom we had exclusive distribution relationships with to deploy their products into rideshare vehicles. And this really nifty little device that mounted on top of the center console would allow a passenger to get inside the vehicle, immediately see it, scan a QR code or use our mobile app to select from a variety of products that were inside the vehicle. Certain products were samples that brands were paying us to distribute. Certain products were retail products that we were buying and then reselling. So there was sort of this surprise and delight and discovery element to it. And we had a really interesting kind of closed loop, media and retail ecosystem where people were getting inside the vehicles, discovering the products. Then if they like the samples, we enabled them to buy those full-size versions of those products online with discounts, so we could track click-through rates to the full-size products through e-commerce channels like Amazon and Jet and Walmart. And really help retailers and brands understand, okay, I put these products into these markets, they were exposed to these consumers. This is how we indexed against our competitive set. These are the types of demographics we perform really well with. We saw surprising things like people were drinking Red Bull in the morning as coffee replacements if they didn't have time to get their coffee, but Red Bull was a great coffee substitute in the morning. So um, and along the way, we deployed between, probably 2017 and the end of 2019, about 50,000 of these vending devices in 14 cities in 5 countries, the US, Mexico, Brazil, Singapore, Indonesia. And we'd raised, $40 million plus in venture capital. And we'd gone from zero to, just about 10 million in revenue in about 30 months. And we saw enormous growth, and that was great. And in 2019, after we had in 2018 inked a deal with Uber to deploy that vending product, they came to us in 2019 and they said, "Hey, we would love to also work with you to deploy screens on top of our rideshare vehicles, because we're building a media ecosystem and we want advertisers to be able to reach people in our apps, in our cars, and everybody around our vehicles to be exposed to apps that are being, ads that are being served up through, displays on top of rideshare vehicles and taxis." So we began working on our second product in the rideshare space with Uber in 2019, which is the car top product that we're probably most known for today. We've got thousands of screens deployed across 7 markets. In the US, about 2/3 of our fleet are on Uber vehicles in 6 cities, and a third of our fleet are on taxis in New York City, also with Uber. And so if you go to New York City and you see, displays on top of taxis, probably 70 or 80% of those displays are owned and operated by us. And then the pandemic hit, and our lives changed pretty considerably because, as you can imagine, we have this sort of nascent car top advertising business that's getting off the ground, but it's literally an out of home advertising product, and nobody was out of their home. But that was fine and that was solvable. The bigger problem was that nobody was getting into rideshare vehicles at the time. And if they were, they certainly weren't consuming products out of those vehicles in which we had our vending devices, because that, early on in the pandemic, we thought disease was transmitted on physical objects. And eventually we sort of found that to be less true. But that posed serious problems for us. So ultimately, we made the difficult decision to basically sunset the much larger portion of our business, which was the vending product, and focus exclusively on the car top advertising product. And that now has sort of opened our mind to how we can work with. We have a pretty unique relationship with Uber, and we're in the process of replicating that with other companies that want to deploy national networks of advertising and media displays. And I'll talk more about how we're unique and differentiated. But long story short, we've sort of re-envisioned the business to really take what we've learned through our relationship with Uber as we've scaled that to the largest car top advertising network in the US, and redeploy a lot of those strategies to make it easier and more cost efficient for companies, in particular retailers, to deploy nationwide networks of displays.
That was an excellent history of the company. Thank you so much for the context.
Sure.
Yeah, it's quite the journey. I think the extent of my journey during the pandemic was I moved. So good job for you guys. I'm curious about the retail space specifically. There's a lot of interest in retail media now, and including in the in-store space as well. But it seems a lot of retailers don't know where to start with that in-store piece. Can you maybe give us a bit of a breakdown of the different, elements that go into developing an in-store media network?
Yeah. And first, maybe let's start off with what's happening. So from our vantage point, what we're seeing is Amazon has eaten everybody's lunch. And I'm not just talking about product sales. Obviously, they've done that on product sales, but more parity is being achieved as companies like Walmart and Target sort of catch up on the product sales side. But where they're really crushing people is they have turned their e-commerce business into a massive advertising business, and it's super high margin. And what I think a lot of retailers are starting to see is, hey, we have a big online audience in our loyalty programs. We've been aggregating people into our loyalty programs for 50 years. We have a huge online audience of people who are now shopping at Walmart.com and Target.com. But we also have, a footprint of thousands of stores across the US and other countries with hundreds of millions of people for the biggest retailers coming through those stores. And that in and of itself is a huge advertising opportunity. So the first step, I think, has been for many of these retailers to think about the low-hanging fruit, which is connecting advertisers to their digital audiences and their loyalty programs and on their e-commerce platforms. The second step, which I think is probably most interesting to you guys and to us, is finding a way to efficiently connect advertisers to that in-store audience. And how do you do that? So if you look at, Walmart's digital media and advertising ecosystem called Walmart Connect, they're mostly focused on serving endemic advertisers. From a digital standpoint, they have search advertising, they have display advertising. I think they have integrations with their customer loyalty programs. And from an in-store standpoint, they have screens and they have brand and product activations, where we are really focused on helping retailers, optimize the media side of their business, is really focusing on the in-store screen element. How do we get you the right screens, inside? How do we make sure those screens are integrated in a holistic way with the rest of your media stack, so that as you're promoting to all of these endemic advertisers, you can serve media across all of your other properties, but also seamlessly across the displays? How do we make sure there's measurement so that we understand what's actually being sold in store, and what's being advertised on the displays, and we can track cause and effect and actually tell advertisers, hey, this is how we can prove to you that your advertising was deployed very effectively, and you can see the lift there was on sales in the locations where those ads were deployed. And the other thing we actually spend a lot of time thinking about is parking areas. In store, again, it's sort of second order low hanging fruit. What a lot of people, in what has been sort of an underrepresented, in our view, opportunity, is the parking areas. This is the last moment. Stores already are inundated with so many different forms of media and advertising and promotional content endemic to the store. Parking areas are typically not. And it's the last moment before you walk into a store when you're deciding, what credit card am I going to use? What do I need to shop for? So we've, especially with our EV media product that we announced last August with ChargePoint, we're spending a lot of time thinking about how we can actually engage customers and welcome them to the store as they enter the parking area and plug in their electric vehicle to charge, with displays that are co-located with the EV chargers. But I would say for us, we would think about the different components of the client's retail strategy, and then try to help them understand the parts of it where we can drive selection of the right display products, integration of that display product with their existing media stack, and then ensuring that any technology in the screens related to measurement or other things is kind of feeding back into that ecosystem in a complementary way to everything else that they're doing.
I'm going to park the parking lot question for a later question. And I do want to follow up with what Rob asked before. So I'm wondering if there are any misconceptions now that you're seeing out there. So maybe something that like retailers don't necessarily understand about rolling out an effective in-store media business.
Yeah. So here's everybody's instinct. Everybody's instinct, when I say everybody, I mean every retailer, is going to be, wow, Amazon now has its own media platform. Walmart has its own media platform. Well, newsflash, not everybody's Walmart and Amazon. Either from an investment standpoint, that those companies just have a lot of dollars to invest into standing up something in-house, or a scale standpoint. It makes sense for Walmart and Target and Amazon to have their own in-house media businesses, because their scale is so large that closed ecosystem in and of itself is of a scale that is going to be interesting to advertisers to factor into their media plans. But not every company has that scale. Not every company has that capacity to invest. So one of the things that we have spent a lot of time thinking about is how do we build a turnkey solution so that a smaller retailer can come to us and say, hey, we may not have 5,000 stores, but we've got 500 or 300 or 200, and we want to generate media revenue at these locations. And how can we work with you to build out a network of displays across all of those locations, which are very valuable to us and very valuable to them, but do that by plugging it into a larger network that is not just that retailer, but that is a larger consortium of networks across multiple retailers. And then that scale across all of those retailers really drives, revenue lift, and enables that sort of individual smaller retailer to reap the benefits of being a much bigger platform and sort of mimic the scale of a Walmart or a retailer of that magnitude. And just to put some specifics on that and what I actually mean, what we've developed with charge point and gas station TV is a good example of this. Gas station TV is one of the largest digital video networks in the US. They've got 200,000 plus screens across 26,000 plus gas stations. They're reaching 40% of US adults monthly. Every screen that we put in the ground next to a charger is then plugged into that GSTV network. So we're not selling, a couple of locations where we have EV media displays. We're selling they're selling their entire network, and the EV media network is growing alongside of it, eventually to a scale where it can be, sold on its own. But it's complementing that existing network they have, and we would sort of apply that same practice to working with some of these smaller retailers where, hey, we just have to, lay the cards on the table and say, you're not Amazon scale, you're not Walmart scale. But if we execute sort of a vision for bringing media to your properties in the right way, we can mimic that scale by bringing into a larger group of retailers and sites where that scale is really meaningful to advertisers.
Yeah, I think we're seeing similar models, popping up in the UK, slightly different kind of retail environments, but the same idea of almost democratizing the in-store digital media channel and making it accessible to companies that otherwise either wouldn't be able to do it at all or wouldn't be able to do it quite as effectively. So maybe if we can get into the details a little bit, if I'm one of these, relatively smaller retailers, I'm interested in this kind of prospect of becoming a part of something bigger. What does that look like to me from a day-to-day perspective? What kind of content can I expect to see? How is this all going to work for me when this introduces, media into my stores?
Yeah. So if you think about just on the surface, maybe how we're different from sort of traditional screen retailers. Maybe we start there and then sort of get more into the media side. But a traditional screen retailer, if you are, a retailer now and you want to build, whether it's plugged into a larger network or, it's standalone, media only present at your specific stores, what you historically would need to do is work with a screen procurement partner who is going to basically look through hundreds and hundreds of options of commoditized displays that are going to be at widely varying price points with different nits and brightness and uptime guarantees and form factors and cost and any number of things. And you're probably going to get a 1-year warranty on those. They're going to charge you a 30% markup, and they're going to sell you the screen. They're going to ship it to you, and then it's kind of your problem from there on out, especially once you're outside of that warranty window. And then to actually actualize that network, you probably need 7 different vendors. In addition to the screen procurement partner, you need somebody to install it. You need somebody to maintain it. You need a connectivity partner that's going to provide cellular to it unless you're plugging it into local Wi-Fi. You're going to need a content management system that you're probably going to have to license and pay additional money for. You're going to need a screen diagnostics or NOC partner to basically, manage the health of those devices remotely and dispatch when needed, maintenance to maintain those screens or hot swap them out. You're going to have to deal with factory RMAs. If a screen breaks down and it's outside of the warranty or inside of the warranty, you're going to have to ship that back to either some national or international vendor who's going to repair those screens. I mean, you literally need 7 or 8 different vendors to actualize a national network. It's CapEx heavy and it's heavy on people. And we believe that for most companies, none of that is actually core to their business. They sometimes will do it today because that's their only option. our model is different. We're really, think of us as a managed service provider and a systems integrator where you can have one vendor to manage all of those work streams that I just described. It's CapEx light, it's team light, or it can be CapEx light. And we really have two different ways you can work with us. You can lease devices where we carry the cost of that device on our balance sheet. We finance it, stays on our balance sheet. And then there's basically a monthly operations and maintenance subscription plus a leasing fee. Or we can retail you that display. You get a long warranty on it. And then there's a very small monthly operations and maintenance subscription where we're also providing the content management and other things. So that's just like dollars and cents, like why we believe this model makes sense and why it's resonating with some of the large public customers that we have today. From an actual media standpoint, again, we have some flexibility. If the client says, "Hey, we actually, it's a large convenience store chain or a medium-sized convenience store chain, and they already have their own internal, media resources, and they just want to sell this to endemic advertisers and folks like, major CPG brands who are going to want additional opportunities to promote their brands digitally inside of those storefronts," that's fine. We'll provide the displays and the content management system and allow you to fully control the content that is on those screens and monetize that content in whatever way you wish. Alternatively, if you'd like that to be plugged into a larger network, there's a couple steps. We're going to analyze each location and the placement of displays within those locations. We're going to bring those to our media partners and opt as many of those as we can into their media network. And then they are going to sell all of that third-party media on your behalf, obviously deconflicting out competitors and other things like that. And in some cases, we can look at, hey, they're selling third-party media and you're still selling endemic media. There are ways for us to sort of, operate and sort of cohabitate from a media standpoint there. But, we don't necessarily believe there's like a one size fits all. And we try to give our customers some optionality based on, what their internal objectives are, and we'll make recommendations, but we try to, as much as we can kind of fit around, the strategic objectives that are coming top down, from that client.
What I love about that is, obviously there are plenty of advantages to going your own way, right? Doing it all yourself and reaping all the rewards that way. But if you don't want to do that, there's another model for you to explore, right? It's kind of just making the in-store digital media channel that we know can be so effective and is clearly on a trajectory to become much more important over the next few years, just much more accessible to all kinds of retailers. So it's really, I don't know, it's an exciting prospect to me that there are these different options out there.
Exactly. And, it's not up to us to decide how you want to monetize these things. It's for us to say, if you are going to monetize these things, let us take off your plate the things that you probably would not choose to do if you didn't have to, and eliminate the pieces of this that are not core to your business and allow you to focus on what you want to focus on, which is either selling products or selling media. And we can sort of expose those displays and keep them healthy. But it's really up to you to sort of use that time and that space to communicate with and influence your customers and generate revenue in whatever way you want.
So I'm going to back up and bring back the parking area that you mentioned earlier. So you have inventory on vehicles, you're in parking facilities and in various environments around the city. What other opportunities does that present retailers who you work with?
So I would say there's a today and there's a tomorrow. Today, all of our networks are siloed networks that are controlled. These several thousand screens are controlled by this media partner. These several thousand screens are controlled by this media partner. At a certain point, I would very much like for those networks to be linked. So today, we can do, technologically non-scalable things like make introductions to see the extent to which, hey, if somebody wants to be on car tops, but also at our EV charging stations, we can help facilitate that. Eventually, I would like for buyers to be able to more seamlessly, or for advertisers to be able to more seamlessly buy across all of those networks. We're not there yet, but eventually, I'd like that for that to happen. But today we would really just do it through through introductions. If somebody is already on car tops and they say, hey, we love that you have these media assets that are also at EV charging stations, because we're really focused on an on-the-go consumer in transit environments, that's great. And we'll make all the introductions that we need. But we today are not actively involved in servicing the media. We're really sort of the infrastructure partner that stands up the media infrastructure and then make sure it performs for whatever media platform, whether it's Uber or gas station TV, is on the other side of that network, selling that media and bringing it to market.
Great.
Maybe just looking ahead, and I guess back to the retail piece in particular, what excites you about retail media, and in particular the in-store piece, and the growth that it's expected to undergo over the next few years?
Well, at a high level, one of the things that we've always thought is we started this company when I was 25 in 2015, 2016. I think it was Paul Graham, for a long time, the Y Combinator founder and CEO said, if you're gonna build a big company, you have to ride a big wave. And when we started the company, rideshare was our big wave, and it still is. But I think we're now seeing the proliferation of digital screens as an ancillary, very big wave to ride. I mean, demand for digital displays is growing at like 10% CAGR, and it's projected to for the next, I think it's 10 years or so. And it's because, folks are seeing, and I say folks, but really that's digital out-of-home media companies, traditional large out-of-home media companies, um, transit operators, retailers, hospitality companies. They're seeing that screens are a really effective way to communicate with and influence your customers. And I think that transition is sort of never more apparent than it is right now. And we're excited to sort of, I think, be a part of that, but really be a solution that the market hasn't had before. Again, just sort of like our view is like the traditional way of acquiring and deploying screens is it's not very good. It's honestly is bad. Like we talked to a major retailer recently that has displays, but they're all across many of its storefronts, but they're all regionally managed by regional billboard networks. And that creates so many issues around being able to serve content in a programmatized way across that entire network. Or when screens are down, you have to talk to different operators to figure out why those assets are down, but these assets aren't. And it really makes it difficult to scale something truly nationwide. It introduces a lot of friction, and it's more, headcount heavy. And I think what we're excited about is hopefully bring, a novel solution to the market that responds to a lot of the pain points that customers who've operated networks of displays have had in the past. And again, not to just hit it too much, but we're really excited, and especially with all the infrastructure funding, coming out, last year and this year and over the next couple of years through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we're really excited about this EV media product. And you're now seeing companies like Walmart, and this is very public in an RFP that they released and made public that they were releasing it. There's a big focus on not only charging, but how those charging stations should be media enabled to plug into their larger retail media network that is built inside of their stores and on their digital platforms. So, for me, it's the most exciting thing is just the growth of the market and our being able to sort of piggyback on that growth. And then, specifically, I think excitement around the products that we were, maybe a little early on in I don't want to say discovering, but sort of putting some weight behind and hopefully developing some novel solutions to accelerate the deployment of those products.
Pioneering. That's the word we need. So let's get that excitement up. We always put our guests on the spot, asking them what is, an example or an idea that you would have for a cool in-store digital media campaign.
Interesting. Okay, so we were doing a demo recently, and one of the things I really wanted our team to build, and I would still love to see this, is we were thinking about this use case, right, where we have these large 50-inch displays that are co-located with the EV charging stations, and we're thinking about different ways that a major retailer could leverage that. Do you want to advertise your curbside pickup? Do you want to advertise your loyalty app? What do you want to do? And I wanted to think about something more transactional. And one of the things that we've kind of been working on is something where, there's a QR code. So there's this beautiful video playing. Somebody showed me sort of a version of this the other day. There's this beautiful video playing. It's very appetizing of these cookies being sort of the ingredients being mixed, and then the cookies being sort of rolled into little cookie balls, and then being smushed um, on the the baking pan to be put in the oven, and it just looks really delicious, and you want to watch it. Advertising is not always good, but good advertising is entertainment, and you actually want to watch the video beautifully rendered on this high def 4000 nit 50-inch display. So you see it, and then a QR code pops up halfway through, and you can scan that QR code. And if you're outside of that retailer, let's say it's Walmart, that QR code brings up all of the ingredients for those cookies and drops them into your cart. So that as you go in, you can either shop those ingredients in the store, or you can just press a button and have those ingredients, purchased through your Walmart card and fulfilled to you, at your home. So I've been really thinking about sort of ways that you can create excitement about a purchase or drive interest in a purchase that somebody wasn't even thinking about. That's sort of instantaneous, and um, and not only drive some of these ancillary goals for retailers, which is we want more people in our store. We want more people thinking about major products that we have in the store, and say, how do we actually drive transactions? And so that was something that we've been thinking about recently, and think it's kind of fun and interesting.
You had me at cookies. I was sold.
Me too. I haven't had lunch yet. I'm starving.
Do you have any final parting words for the audience?
Gosh, I don't know. My mind always goes to, we've got a good team of people, and we've been really working hard on this business for 7 years. And after navigating through the pandemic, where that was sort of unkind to us for a year or two there, and fortunately we've emerged stronger on the other side, profitable, growing, all the things that you want to be, which is great. But I think just to other founders who are in this space, we're excited to work with you, and we had some headwinds over the last couple of years, but I do think we've got a lot of tailwinds kind of coming, especially as people get more excited about retail media, which has kind of been a buzzword for a while, but now some of those things are starting to percolate in real ways into the space, and we're getting more inbound than we ever had before. So, I hope other people are sort of, and other founders and company, earlier stage companies in our space are sort of poised to benefit from that. And if anybody, hears this and is excited about it and wants to reach out, we're always happy to chat.
On that note, how would they get in touch with you? Is there you want to share a website, email address, LinkedIn profile? Now's your opportunity.
Yeah, feel free to LinkedIn me. It's just my name, or reach out through our webpage, where we actually get a lot of just through our website, we actually get a lot of inbounds, and everything gets forwarded directly to me, or one of our key operators, and frankly, still most of it gets surfaced to me. So no, that actually is, it's not one of those, our email capture isn't something where, it's just your email and question it's not a place where it goes to die. It will get responded to. So yeah, please, through the website or through my LinkedIn, that would be great.
Perfect. Rob, you promised me one dinosaur question, and I have been waiting. It's time.
It's time.
I want to ask Rob and Jeff, what is your favorite dinosaur?
I can go first because I'm not an expert, and my answer will mean nothing. I think it's a plesiosaurus. It might just be a plesiosaur. I don't even know that. I like the aquatic guy with the long neck. That's my guy.
Gosh, now I wish I haven't looked at this in a while. I think those actually might technically be marine reptiles, not dinosaurs, but we'll let it slide. What would mine be? Well, I love the one that I found, which was a theropod in southern Utah. It's like a 35-foot dinosaur. We found basically the lower right leg, and we found a bunch of other stuff around it, sea turtles and hadrosaurs and other cool creatures. And theropods are basically tyrannosaurs. So this was kind of similar to like an Albertosaurus. So I do like that guy. But I was actually watching season 2 of Prehistoric Planet, or season 1 of Prehistoric Planet, which is the Apple TV show, which is basically sort of the dinosaur version of of planet Earth. And it's actually, it's spectacular. We were watching, my wife and I, the Therizinosaur, which is sort of like sort of like a large, like clawed, sort of almost like ostrich-like creature. And I mean, they're huge. They're like T-Rex size. Like they're massive. I just couldn't imagine actually seeing one of those in person. Nor have I ever, even come close to looking for finding something like that. But I think those guys are pretty cool.
I think you came as close as you possibly could by discovering those fossils, which I'm very, very excited to hear about. If any of you are curious, my favorite dinosaur is an ankylosaurus, probably because I did a grade 3 exercise on the ankylosaurus and just ended up sticking to that dinosaur as my favorite one. So,
It's a good
um,
pick. They're fun. I think that
yeah,
also might be my wife's favorite dinosaur. So that's
yeah,
good. They've got a lot of fans.
yeah, good to know. Good to know I picked a good dinosaur.
It's
uh,
good company.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff. I think that wraps it up for questions. Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. And that is it for today. We'll be back in a couple weeks for more about retail media and technology. So make sure you come back then to see what else we have in store for you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Look forward to chatting again soon.